Okay, good morning. This warm-up is warm-up number 2. Make sure that you have the title down with the correct date. If this is an even day, your date should be 11:30. And if this is an odd day, then your date should be 12/1. Make sure you're not writing down both of these dates because you don't need them. You don't need both of them. It will confuse you if you do that. Do make sure you put the title up here, Unit 2C, Characteristics of Functions. So I had some questions. A couple of students text me and let me know that they were having a little bit of problems with their classwork from last class. So I wanted to make sure to go over this, okay? I know in my example, I did an example with a parabola, so I wanted to make sure to go over it with the equation of the line. This is how most of your problems on your CDA look, okay? So we have a graph. The graph is already graphed. There's nothing else I need to do under this column. Now under here it says we need to write the equation of the line. So remember, the M up here is my slope, and the B here is my y-intercept. So whatever we get here, we know should be the same thing over here where we see y-intercept here. Okay? So which one do you think is the easiest to find, the slope or the y-intercept? The y-intercept, because all we have to do is look at the y-axis and figure out where does this blue line hit the y-axis. Right here. That is my B. B equals 1. Alright, now to find my slope, I need another point. So we always use the B as one of our points. Now I got to find another point. So remember, when you're looking for your point, you want to choose a point that is on your blue line. So I'm going to trace the blue line until I find a good spot right here where the blue line hits exactly at an X and a Y value. So I wouldn't want to choose a point like right here. That's right in the middle. I don't know what that is, okay? So now we're going to do rise over run from the low point to the high point. You can only go straight up and then straight across. So I'm going to draw the triangle because this is the way we're moving. So we're going to move up and then we're going to move over. I'm going from this dot to this dot. How many do we have to move up to get a line? 1, 2, 3. Since we went up, that means that is a positive number. So my slope, or my M, is starting out as a positive 3. 3 goes on the top because that is my rise number. Now we have to get a run number because that is how we create the fraction for our slope. So starting here, I have to run, but notice which way we're moving. We are running to the left, and when we run to the left, that means that number is negative. How many do we have to move? 1, 2. So that means I have a negative 2 on the bottom. We had to rise 3, positive, and run 2 in a negative direction. So this is my slope. Now what we need to do is write the equation of the line. Let's plug in our B. Let's plug in our M. So we have y equals, remember we said the B was 1 and the slope, which is M, goes first. So 3 over negative 2x plus 1. This is what we did in the last couple of units that we've had. So y equals mx plus b. B is the point that you began with, and your slope is your rise over run. Make sure you pay attention to your signs. Now I know some of you will probably want to put that negative on the top. That's fine. So if you wrote it as y equals negative 3 over 2x plus 1, that's fine, okay? But this 1 here had to be positive. That's like the key. Alright, so then we come over here in our table, and we're going to plug in your calculator, hit your y equals button, which is the button, it says just like this, y equals, and it's right underneath your screen. Alright, once you hit y equals, then you see the list. Y1 equals, Y2 equals, Y3 equals, and so on. I want you to type in your Y1, this equation that we just wrote. So I'm going to type in 3. The way you type in fractions is you use a division bar. So divided by -2. And make sure that is a -2, not -2. You have to hit the white button in order to get that negative. -2 x plus 1. You should type this in your y1. So I'm going to do that right quick. Divided by -3 divided by 2 x plus 1. Alright, so once you get that in there, in order to see the table, which is what this is asking you for, if you look at your calculator and look at your graph button, you notice above it you see the word table, but notice that that word is blue. So that means in order to get to the table, you have to hit second, which is your blue button, and then table, or second and then graph. Alright, so inside your calculator right now you have your table. Now if your x doesn't show -3 first, then you simply need to use your up and down arrows to move your x values until you have -3 on your calculator. Let me give you a minute to get to -3. If you got it and your neighbor did not have it, please help them out. Alright, so hopefully everybody was able to find the table. On the left you have your x values. We need to fill in what our y values were. So when we typed in -3, the calculator gave me back 5.5. Alright, when the calculator shows -2, we have 4. When the calculator shows -1, we have 2.5. When the calculator has 0, we have 1. When the calculator has 1, we have -0.5. When the calculator has 2, what is your y value? -2. Very good. And when the calculator has the x value of 3, what is our y value? -3.5. Okay? So notice the calculator gave you your table. Much easier than I think you thought that was going to be. All you had to do was hit your y equals button, type in the equation, okay, and then we hit second and graph, and we just look for the values in our table. Use your up and your down arrows to go up and down. Alright, so now that we have all of that information put in our table and our equation, I'm going to clear my board up a little bit because I need some more space. Alright, so now we get to all the characteristics of the function. So we're going to describe the function. Just like I could describe my personality or my characteristics. So how far, the domain and range tell me how far to the left and right does the graph go, and how far up and down does the graph go. Okay? Domain is side to side, range is up and down. Alright, you guys, because this graph has an arrow on both sides of it, you see these have arrows, that means this graph never ends. You cannot just look at it as where it stops in this graph, because this line keeps going forever and ever and a day. It never ever 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 never ever does it stop. It keeps going. So if that's the case, How far to the left and how far to the right does this graph go? It goes to infinity. That's what infinity means. Infinity means that it goes on and on forever. So if your graph does not end, then my domain is going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay? Alright, so range tells us how far up and down does the graph go. We got to remember the same thing. This graph never ends. It keeps going up and up and up and up, and it keeps going down, 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 down. So that means my range is also negative infinity to positive infinity. The only way that you would have anything else for your domain or your range is if you're talking about a real life situation. If I asked you, if we did a measurement of how many miles I could run in 10 hours and you measured me every hour, okay? That would be an example that would not keep going on forever because I cannot keep running forever, okay? Another example would be if you see a dot on your line. So if you see a line in your graph that looks like this or looks like this, then that means it doesn't keep going on and on forever, and whatever this value is right here, that part would be a number, and the side of the graph that has an arrow represents infinity. So these are examples where you would change this and you would not have negative and positive infinity. Otherwise, if your graph looks like this and it has arrows on both sides of the graph, your domain and your range are always negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay? I hope that cleared that up with you guys just a little bit. Alright. Now we need to do our x and our y-intercept. So I'm going to clear up my graph again because we need to be able to look at it carefully. X-intercept, where does it hit the x-axis? What is the value of x where it hits the x-axis? Well, this one's not really exact, so we're going to have to approximate. I would say 0.6. 0.6. It is a decimal. It is not 1. It's less than 1, but it's bigger than 0. And all the numbers that are in between 0 and a positive 1 are decimals. Alright, and because it's the x-intercept, x gets the number, y will be 0. Because that is the point right here, and of course the y value of that point is 0. Alright, now your your y-intercept is this point right here, because we're looking at the y-axis. Where does the blue line hit the y-axis? The y-intercept. Because we're talking about y-intercept now, this time y gets the number. It hits at 1, and the other number is a 0. So we just did our x and our y-intercepts. Very easy. For linear equations, you will never have a max or a min, because these lines keep going on and on forever. There is no point that is the lowest point. Not if the line keeps going forever. There is no line, there is no point that is the highest point if the line keeps going forever and ever and ever in a day. So if it is a linear equation, notice the word linear has the word line in it. So if it makes a line, it will never have a max or a min. That will always be none. Alright, in behavior. For in behavior, I like for you to use a highlighter, and we're going to highlight our answers. Okay? So this is how it's normally going to look. As x approaches negative infinity, what does y approach? As x approaches positive infinity, what does y approach? So notice we're given the y value. So the y value is going to be described by where the graph is going. So negative infinity over here means look at the left side of the graph, because the left is where the negative numbers are. And since we're talking about a negative infinity, we're looking at where all the x values would be negative. So if I look at where all the x values are negative, that's this side of the graph. Okay? What's happening to the line if we start at 0 and go further in a negative direction? What's happening to the y values? Where are they going? Up to the sky. And since it never stops, that means the y's are approaching positive infinity, because they're going up and up to the sky. They never stop going up. Alright, now let's look at the other side of the graph. So when they say as x approaches positive infinity, like this, that means look at the right side of the graph. Okay? We start at 0 and we're going to trace our line starting at 0 right here, but we're on the positive side. So what is happening if we start at 0 and we trace the blue line? Where is my line going? Down. Since my line is going down, that means the y values will go to negative infinity. And that's it, you guys. Just remember, for in behavior, start at 0 and trace the left side of your graph. If it's going up, it's positive infinity. If it's going down, it's negative infinity. Okay? The only time you would have a value other than negative or positive infinity, once again, is if you see these type of closed or open circles on your graph. If you have an arrow on both sides, your answer is always negative and positive infinity. Okay? Alright, so please remember that you do have a quiz next class on Friday for even classes, and on Monday, December the 5th, for my odd classes. Okay? This video and all of the videos that you've seen this week will be posted on my website. So please don't forget, sylviaanderson.weebly.com. Alright, you can also see any of the other math teachers for tutoring. The schedule is on the outside of my classroom door. You guys, please be good. I cannot wait to see who's going to win the pizza party for the highest grades and the best behavior. Have a good day.